Hello Booktube, welcome to the world of harsh lighting and dark shadows. I will do my best to stay in the light. I'm just so excited to talk to you about a book. So this sort of feeling about having to talk about the book right now hasn't happened in quite some time, and I'm very excited about it. Sadly, this book is brilliant, but filled to the brim with lament. I have just finished in 2 days this book called The Service of Clouds by Delia Falconer. So I adore clouds. I don't know much about them, like the scientific names. I learnt a lot in this book actually. I have recently, with my love of photography, started taking photos of the sky and clouds and storms as they roll in, and my parents' new property just has this vast open amount of sky which is really beautiful to photograph, and this book is surprisingly exactly about that. It's a historical fiction, so some of the characters in this book, which I didn't know until after I'd finished reading, are based on real characters from the 1900s. It is beautiful. It's tragic. Its story in itself doesn't really have that much depth of tragedy within it. It's just an everyday account of a life, every day, in the fact that it's not a fairy tale. Great wondrous things happen, but there's no happily ever after. It's marvelously poetic and enriched with lament, an abundance of micro stories that really encompass the soul of the place. It's set in Katoomba in the Blue Mountains in Australia, which is a place I have a fondness for, and I've been there quite a lot, and the descriptions are incredibly accurate. She talks about colour and the clouds and the mist, and the characters in there are just wonderful. I don't know anything about clouds, but this book is split into 3 sections, and each section is named after a different cloud, and it kind of mirrors what's happening in her life. So the first section is the cumulus section, and it's sort of the backstory of her family and how she gets to be where she is. And then the middle section is called Cirrus, which is sort of the great love story and the epicness of her life and her interactions with not only her town and her family, but also this one person who she falls deeply in love with, and they share a very strange connection for that time. The language in it is just so unique and so beautiful that even though it is a tortured lament of a story, you really want to just know what happens, and you get to know this character and her love interest so well, and the process by which they work, and how she thinks is a little bit more beautiful, a little bit more poetic and deep and enriched than a lot of other voices. I think that's a really unique thing that I really bonded with, because I don't like sad stories, right? And this isn't, there is no happiness in this book. I mean, it's romantic and it's poetic and it's incredibly beautiful, but it's not a happy story. The third part is the Stratus, which brings you up to date with where she is now as she's writing this. So it turns out to be a diary entry from 1927, kind of her reflection and of her life in the mountains and breathing in the fresh air and the clouds, and how invigorating that's supposed to be on a human, how the fresh mountain air is supposed to make you happy and well. And it's beautifully written, but kind of leaves sand on your soul. Like, it's sticky. The writing itself kind of sticks to you, and you're like, that's an amazing description. It's an interesting book because I've absorbed the melancholy from within it. So while I was reading it, it was the middle of the night and I couldn't put it down, and I was just feeling really sad. Not in like a depressive way, but in a monotonous life sort of way. In a I should accomplish my dreams because people can do anything. I was just kind of like, well, I have to do my thing so my life doesn't turn out like that. It inspired me to pursue my passions. In this book, passion is described as a sort of madness, and there's a lot of creative energy in here which is not necessarily frowned upon, but it's about coping mechanisms, I think, and the writing expresses that deep, enriched thought in the text, in the way it's written, which is just fascinating. I can tell that the author has gone to a lot of trouble to do all of the research in this book, which is great, and you learn at the end in the thank you notes that some of the characters that you wouldn't have thought were based on true facts are. So the guy who runs the chemist, and all of the places as well. She's very good at describing the places and the feel of the places, and etching the sadness of the valleys into your mind's eye. Especially having been there and seen the mists that hide the three sisters, I just knew exactly what she was talking about the colours of the blue in the mountains. That some days it's violet and sometimes it's grey, and mostly it's just this blue which you can never find or recreate again. And the photographer is obviously a real person, but his story is completely different. The Hydro Majestic Hotel is an actual hotel that I've driven past and stopped and seen the lookout, and it's just an absolutely beautiful place, which is up and running again now. It has amazing descriptions and events that are held in that hotel where I've driven past, which was just so beautiful. And that building is majestic. Like, it's not called the Majestic for no reason. Like, it is amazing, and it looks like something that should be in Eastern Europe but has been placed on the hills of Sydney. Like, the Blue Mountains are just such a strange, beautiful place where the sky just reaches into the mountains and the sheer cliff faces with the bush and the scrub, and there's birds that fly through, and it is cloudy all the time and it's misty all the time, and this photographer is just extends himself off the side of the cliff next to this building, and he just takes these amazing photos. And it has really good descriptions of the dark room and the early practices of photography and the plate glasses and having to clean them off after each. There's a beautiful scene where they throw these ribbons off the cliff, and it's supposed to be this amazing dramatic like rainbow of ribbons falling down and billowing into the scrub below, but the updraft catches them and it's thrown back in their faces. And I think that opposition of reality, like, you can't make that beautiful thing happen, and then the description of that beautiful thing is such a great metaphor for this book, because it is so full of dreams and hopes and empowering thoughts and great strong characters, but then also just the crushing harshness of reality and what actually happens in real life, and the separation and the divide between these things is so great, but you can't really have one without the other. Like, it's, I don't know, man. I just really liked this book. I just really enjoyed it. Even though it was sad and not at all the kind of book that I would find myself reading normally. Yeah, so hopefully that was enough. That's all I have to talk about, I think, with this book. I will see you all very soon, hopefully. Okay, thank you so much. How do you turn this thing off?